Hey everyone, this is George Couros. Welcome back to another episode of the Innovators Mindset podcast. And what I wanted to talk about today is really about how we leverage technology. And there's a really great quote. It's from a Canadian philosopher. His name is Marshall McLuhan. And you might have heard it or a variation of it. And I think about it quite a bit. And it is simply this: we shape our tools, and thereafter our tools shape us. And I've thought about this quite a bit because I do think that our tools can really shape who we become, how we use them, if we're not intentional and really thoughtful about how we actually use these things. And I'll give you an example of my own life. As many of you know, I've really struggled with my weight for years and years and years, and I feel like I've got a pretty good hold on it. I would never say that I'm like 100% healthy, that everything is going well. It's something I consistently struggle with, but the way I've actually been able to deal with things has been really, really helpful. But one of the strategies I've had that has really helped with my mental health, which has ultimately helped with my physical health, and I think I don't know, it's like kind of chicken egg scenario. I don't know which one supports the other, but it is something that I do with technology. And it's simply this: I actually have no notifications on my phone. My phone is right beside me right now. And during this podcast, which will be between 10, maybe 20 minutes long, there will be no notifications. There will be no phone ringing, no pinging, nothing. After I'm done this podcast, there will also be no notifications. Nothing will be coming to my phone. And I can't remember when I first started doing it, but I actually years ago decided that I am going to be on Do Not Disturb 24/7. It does not matter what goes on my day. The only time I ever turn it off is if I'm expecting an important phone call. But there's no mentions on Instagram. There's no text messages that are coming through, not even a silent message. And I think the reason why I wanted to kind of talk about this is because years ago, basically my phone drove my behavior. Every time that ping, you kind of get some anxiety. You got to go to it, do this too. So I actually decide when I'll go to my phone. I never let my phone decide when I should pay attention to it. And that's something that I really, really think about quite a bit, is that so many people, and I will tell you, and I'm kind of annoying about this, when I'm around people that have those pings nonstop, just messages going off, it starts to bother me. And because, I think they become so numb to it, they kind of just see that. And it's like Pavlov's dog, right? The ringing the bell, and, you kind of expect something there too. And it's something that I think really, really matters to me. And I still use social media. I still use my phone. I still use it all the time. But I decide when I use this. And this is actually something that I share with students quite a bit too, and why it really, really matters. And I think we talk about this, there's so many schools that are banning phones, and that's not my place to say whether you should or you shouldn't or anything like that. I know there's focus on why it's really bad, and I understand that. But I also am concerned that if you don't actually teach young people how to leverage these devices and be thoughtful of their usage, they become adults who struggle with it too. There's so many adults who have issues with this. They don't realize that the impact of what they share online, of kind of, what we're actually doing. And so it's not like you just become older and this is new to everybody. We're all kind of the same stage. And I think a lot of my weight struggles, a lot of my health struggles were really because my phone was driving a lot of my behavior. And I've really tried to shift that in what I do. Now, I wrote a newsletter about this whole, and I'll link it down below. In the newsletter, I talked about this, and there are some ways that I allow technology to shape my behavior. So I'm new to the Orlando area, and I'm new-ish, like I've been here 3 years, but I don't really know how to get places without Google Maps. And so I kind of let that drive me, and I don't want to, it's kind of embarrassing. I'm just really directionally challenged. I've always struggled with sense of direction. If you're talking like, go north, east, I'm like, I don't know what's going on. So I basically, I travel quite a bit for speaking, for connecting with people. And I use Google Maps all the time, and I don't even try to do that. So I know there's some places where I kind of let the technology kind of shape some of my behaviors, but I really am trying to be thoughtful of this as well. And the reason I bring this up with students is that I think a lot of times when I talk to them, they do really pay attention to some of the stuff that I say, because I'm talking about it from a place of experience. I don't say you shouldn't be using your phone, it's the devil, and then, never use it myself. I think when we actually kind of understand some of the pitfalls and some of the strategies we have while still using it, then we actually can teach our kids this process as well. So that's something that I really think about too. And so as much as I appreciate that quote, and I'll say it again from Marshall McLuhan, we shape our tools and therefore and thereafter our tools shape us. As much as that can be true, I also think if you're intentional, there is a way that you can actually, ensure that you shape your tools and how you use them. They should never shape you, like ultimately who you are as a person. And you're seeing a lot of this too, right? The way we talk to each other can be really detrimental, because when you don't see each other's expressions, when you don't see how we're connecting, a lot of times you see people write really negative things. I've had people say things to me that I know they'll never say to my face. They'll never say in front of my family and things like that too. Because it's easy to say online, right? Because there's no repercussions of it too. And, that's something that we start shaping. Does that make us better? And so I think that's something that's really kind of important to me. So I was really reflecting on this, and it's interesting because I talked about these three things, and I'll give you kind of examples for each one. And I'll throw it up on the screen. I'll throw it up on the screen. I'm pointing so I can make sure I can edit this easily. I say 3 ways we should shape our technology usage. And the first one is technology should be used to elevate communities and bring us closer together. If you are not intentional, technology can become the great divider. The way algorithms just feed information to basically confirm what you want. You have to be intentional about finding information that you might disagree with and kind of seeing other sides of it too, but also really being thoughtful of like, do we use this to bring people together? And just off the top of my head, I remember a student years ago, and I've shared this example a million times to districts I work with. He said, look, if you can actually use technology to bully people and be horrible to them, why can't you use it to lift them up? So he started this account to compliment students in the school, and that spread not only in his school, but all over the world. And I think that's such a really great, and every time I show it to students, so many students their eyes start to light up. But I will tell you this as an aside on that example, because we sometimes have gone so far down this rabbit hole, I think some kids are really terrified to use technology to be nice because they're worried they're going to get backlash, because that's not how we should be using it. We should be using it to fight each other. So I think we have to get in earlier on this stuff too. The second one I shared is technology should be used to stoke curiosity and deepen knowledge in the pursuit of developing wisdom. I will, again, give you an example off the top of my head about this, and I'll talk a little bit more about all of this stuff in a second. Doing this podcast, articulating ideas to you and knowing anyone in the world can see this makes me really think deeply about this. The best thing I've ever done for my learning is my blog. It is not even close. It's not connecting on social media. It's not any of that, as much as I love that, because just having time to think and to reflect and to ask myself questions and really dig into information and try to find that. And the thing I love about blogging is that it really pushes me to have a 360-degree view on like, what is the pushback to what I'm sharing. And so I would say that since I've started blogging, I've become a lot smarter than I was prior. And so like but you can also just look at surface level information, not pay attention to it. And the worst thing is when someone thinks they're smart, but they don't know stuff. That's when I struggle. And I'm smart enough to know how much I don't know. And that's where that curiosity really comes in. And then the last one, technology should improve our personal well-being and overall health. And I'll talk more about that in a second. So I actually, I wrote about this in, coincidentally, when someone brought up, actually 2 people in the same week, a program I did, I think it started in 2013. It was called the School Admin Virtual Mentor Program. This is something I started myself. And I did have some people, I'm embarrassed to say this. It was so long ago, I can't remember who started with me. I'm guessing Katie Martin, because Katie Martin and I have done so much work together, and I've always kind of leaned on her for support. But even if she didn't, she's helped me with a million things, so I'll give her a little shout out here. So yeah, I'm like, I'll give you a little mouth shout out there. So when the School of Men Virtual Mentor Program, and I just call it the SAVMP. It's actually funny because someone brought it up to me and I couldn't remember what the acronym stood for, but I remember the acronym. It was basically this. It was all these administrators, and it was experienced administrators and new or aspiring administrators. And I built this program to bring them all together. Totally free, great way to network. But what was beautiful, you have like some of these big ideas being shared with the entire network. But what I did is people had to sign up, and you had to say, like, did you want to be a mentor or a mentee? And you had to tell a little bit about your experience, right? If you're like a first-year administrator, probably be a mentee rather than a mentor. And what I did is I would pair a mentor with 3 mentees, I don't know if that's the proper term, but that's what I actually did. And so you have this gigantic network of all these people learning from each other, but then you actually have these smaller networks built in where they got really to know each other on a personal level. And what's interesting is that someone I really look up to and aspire to, his name is Adam Welcome, brilliant mind. I know he's been a principal. He brought this up because he was in it. I actually did not know that at the time because there's over 400 people that signed up, and it was so long ago. And he talked about the impact, and he's still connected to these people. And interestingly enough, only a few days earlier, someone else brought this up, even though I hadn't done it for over a decade, talking about how they still connected with those people in that program that they were paired up with. And this wasn't people in their district. It was people outside, could be on the other side of the world. I actually remember when I was reading through it, it was really focused on, I try to pair people based on time zones, not location. So I wanted you actually to get a perspective of someone that wasn't where you were, but that you could actually connect somewhat easier based on time zones. And that was a way I used technology to really not only try to bring people together and make those networks really small, but that they could kind of, really dig in and learn about stuff. And, that they were doing there's mentorship in the admin program and really kind of diving into this. And so that's something that I really kind of aspired to. And so I just thought it was like really interesting because I've seen technology be used to basically totally divide people. And like, I'm trying to be intentional in doing this. And I'll tell you this straight up. The technology is so powerful that it will shape you if you are not intentional. And even if you are intentional, it still shapes some of our behaviors. But I'm just trying to be so thoughtful about this and how we actually use it. So I'm just gonna read off some of the examples I shared for each one, and I'll go through each one again, point by point. The first one, again, technology should be used to elevate communities and bring us closer together. And I mentioned the SAVMP, and you can read the whole newsletter as well. But I also showed this video of Tony Sinanis. He's a very good friend of mine. I really admire him. He's a superintendent currently, but he was once a principal, or like when I first met him. And he would do this newsletter to actually with his school community. And it was him as the principal, but also with students. And the students would go out, find information, share this, but they'd all do it together. And it was such a really great way to elevate the community. And they would talk about how kids, like what kids were doing in a classroom. It was older students talking about the younger students. So how do they find that information? They go to classroom, asking other kids what they're doing. So you can actually use to share that message through technology. They actually had to do some in-person stuff. And so I just thought it was a really good example. And you can see the link in the newsletter as well, because it's just a really great way. And how does that actually elevate the community? And something I always say is I'd rather see the imperfections of my child than the perfection of any teacher. And so the reason why I always share this video with groups is because what I really love about it is a lot of teachers who are so overwhelmed with so much time, they're spending their time communicating with parents. Get the kids to do it. And not only will families probably appreciate it more, but they'll probably watch it. A lot of times we put a lot of work in and people don't pay attention to it. And so it's just a really great way to kind of like have those students connect with each other in their community, but also share information so they can connect outside with their families as well. The second one, technology can be used to stoke curiosity and deepen knowledge in the pursuit of developing wisdom. And so I talked about this, about portfolios, and my blog / portfolio is what I started over a decade ago, not because I thought, hey, this is really going to change my career. This is going to, open all these doors for me. I started it because I was a principal and we were trying to figure out how to do portfolios with our students. I'm like, I can't not explain this until I do it. So I just went and started doing it as well. And as I said earlier, it really actually pushed my thinking. But putting all this effort into writing and sharing ideas and truly trying to articulate stuff, I actually know how frustrating it is when someone sees a quote and then they don't even pay attention to the article. There's so many times I like tweet something and I'll share a quote from the article, but I'll share the link to the article so you can actually read the entire thing. And someone will like write some snarky comment on social media. I'm like, did you even read it? Like, did you like, if you're going to write a snarky comment, at least read it. Just read it so you can see like, maybe I actually agree with you and you don't know that. And there's so many times people are like kind of pushing back on the quote, even though I agreed with them in the article, and you can tell right away they didn't read it. And I actually wrote this because this is something that I'm really passionate about. A lot of times we look at quotes, we don't look at the context, and we get a feeling about it and we'll reshare, blah, 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 blah. Did you actually look at the whole thing before you made a judgment? And I actually wrote this: having access to mountains of information means little if we only skim the surface to make decisions. Here's something, you read a quote, and I'll give you an example of this. There is a quote that I am known for, and it's, we need to make the positives so loud that the negatives are almost impossible to hear. And I have been accused of toxic positivity for this quote forever, right? Now, if you took the quote, and I will be honest with you, I've seen people use a quote, they don't know the story, they just like the quote, they share it, and it's like toxic positivity, blah, blah, blah. But I've actually written about this quote and where I got it, but there's a whole story behind it. There's a whole story behind what they're doing. So if you're going to make a judgment based on the quote, actually maybe ask questions. Say like, hey, like, why do you think that? Instead of just saying, this is that, right? This is this thing. And I love the Ted Lasso quote, or I know it's not a Ted Lasso quote, but I first heard it in Ted Lasso, and so many people know it because of it, from Walt Whitman. He said, be curious, not judgmental. So sometimes when we get that kind of, feeling inside that we don't like something, I think it's really important to just kind of stop, go deep, dig deeper in information and find this. And I remember this article I read years ago, and it was so powerful to me. It said, if you want to debate someone, you need to know their side so well that you can make their arguments for them. And that means you got to dig into information, right? And so that's something like when people like will just say something, I'll start asking questions. But often I know kind of where they're going. And that is something that it doesn't really matter if we have all this access to information if we don't leverage it. If we only look at the kind of the tip of it too. So last one, technology should improve our personal well-being and overall health. And I talked about the notification thing. That's something that I don't even want to say it helped me. Because it didn't. It didn't help me because before phones, this is not an issue, right? So I'm not going to say like, hey, it's a problem that was created that did not exist that I had to pay attention to kind of reverse. But here's something that losing a bunch of weight. There's certain things I actually did this time that have helped me keep the weight off a lot longer. So I've always struggled with the idea of calorie deficits. I don't like thinking about stuff in a negative, like, hey, you got to like keep under this, whatever. It feels really constrictive to me. And even though I know the science, calories in, calories out. So one of the things that I really focused on is protein goals. Is like, hey, I want to be this weight. How many grams of protein can I eat? And so that's easier for me, something to aspire to versus something to like take away from me. I wouldn't have known that without actually following like fitness influencers and, kind of learning from some of those things. Now, that being said, like I've connected with these people that are, really motivational. I love their stuff. And the thing that I said is that when you're connected with someone on social media, if you feel worse after like reading their stuff, you probably shouldn't connect with them. If you're like mad every time, does that really help you? Does that make the world better? Right? And like I mute quite a bit. I don't block. I have, but I really like I know that my mood on when I use technology, if I'm not cognizant, it might make me feel crappy, and then I get off my computer, get off my phone, and then I'm crappy to my kids. So I'm like, hey, this does not exist in a bubble. How this device makes me feel if I go off and do something and kind of connect somewhere else. And so that's something that really I'm very thoughtful of is when I connect with people, are they a fountain or a drain? Do I feel better after talking to them or worse? And this is not just online, it's offline as well too. Something I'm really thoughtful of. And I know that, I'm independent, I work on my own. And so I can be a little bit better about this. But there's times as a teacher, I'll tell you, I sat in my room with my students and ate lunch rather than going to the staff room, because I'm not going in a toxic staff room where I'm going to be miserable, right? I know I have to work with people and always try to be nice to them, but I'm not going to spend extra time if I don't have to. If, I feel worse after connecting them, I'll be around students who want to play basketball. That's more my jam. And so that's something I'm really thoughtful is like, are you using this? So do you feel better after this? Is it inspiring you to be healthy? A lot of times phys ed teachers will say to me, hey, like, how do you get kids to use these devices to improve phys ed? I'm like, well, I don't want your kids running with phones. Like, that's not, and taking selfies while they're doing it. But could you get them to share some like healthy eating habits, connect with some people that will show them some really beneficial things? But going back, like, and I think none of these work in isolation. There's like, I'll give you an example, the Liver King, right? The Liver King. And I think, and you might not know Liver King, but this guy eats liver and he's just jacked, right? And he's huge. And I like some of his stuff, but the guy was obviously on, performance enhancing, medicine. And he was selling these liver things, right? And it's like, hey, you're not going to get like this guy by eating these liver pills. And so you do have to be really cognizant. And when I wrote about the importance of curiosity, I always share this, like, curiosity is part skepticism and part wonder. Like you always got to kind of like be a little bit leery and kind of dig into something that sometimes, someone will say, hey, if you just do this thing and you can be built like me, there's something else going on in the background that they're not telling you, right? Because it's easy to sell. So I think there's always should be some skepticism in what we do. But I also think that, there's things I can learn from people, even if they're doing stuff I wouldn't necessarily do. And because I follow some doesn't mean I agree with everything they say. Because you're listening to this podcast, I guarantee you don't agree with everything I say, right? And I think that really matters, is that I hope it's more about a feeling than we just agree with each other. Does being here make you feel better or worse? And I think that's something to me. So I'm going to go over those 3 things real quick again. 3 ways we should shape our technology usage. Technology should be used to elevate communities and bring us closer together. Technology should be used to stoke curiosity and deepen knowledge in the pursuit of developing wisdom. And technology should improve our personal well-being and overall health. And I'm going to be presenting on this quite a bit coming up in the year. But here's a weird thing about me. I wanted to share these ideas with you and put them out to the world before I present them to the world, because I'm trying to like articulate them and figure this out. And by talking to you, even though I'm talking to a camera, it helps me really kind of put these ideas out there, kind of work through them and develop some of my own ideas. And I said this in the post. As I share the 3 points above, I will expand on them in the future and present these ideas at conferences and school communities in the upcoming year. They might feel a bit utopian in their nature because new technologies will always shape some aspects of our behaviors in specific contexts. However, if we aren't intentional in our usage, it can shape not only our behaviors, but also who we become as people. When we shape our technology usage in pursuit of our personal aspirations and connections as humans, there can be tremendous benefits, but ultimately, that requires intentionality. You either shape your technology usage or it'll shape you. I choose the former to help me create better opportunities for myself and those I serve. So I just wanted to share that with you. I've already written about this. You can see that link down below, but I hope this helped you in some way and maybe can spark some conversations in person, which I love. Or maybe, in the comments down below, maybe I haven't leveraged comments the way I should when I'm posting on YouTube and, doing the podcast, but I would love to hear from you. Hopefully this helps you. And as always, I share these ideas, but they're constant ways I'm just trying to evolve my thinking. There's no right or wrong. It's just trying to kind of like be ahead of things and pay attention to. And I think that if we really learn to do this as adults, to really shape the way we can use this, we're so much better off teaching our kids to do the same thing and not put them in a situation where this technology is really making them worse than it is better. Anyways, thanks for being here. I really appreciate you taking your time to listen to me. If you made it to the end, I appreciate you so much. Have a wonderful day. Thanks for all you do. Take care.